Wealth and privilege often build walls between people, but sometimes those walls are shattered in the most unexpected ways. In a mansion filled with silence and secrets, a millionaire's paralyzed daughter watched the world from the shadows of her wheelchair. No one ever imagined she would share a moment of pure joy with the maid's daughter, a girl from a world so far beneath the wealthy family's eyes. But when the millionaire discovered them together, his reaction left everyone speechless, and what followed would challenge deep-rooted prejudice in ways no one saw coming. The estate stood on the edge of the city, a sprawling mansion with white marble floors and towering chandeliers that gleamed under the afternoon sun. It was the kind of house that seemed untouchable, a world away from the crowded neighborhoods where most of its staff returned after their shifts. Among them was Rosa, a quiet maid who had worked for the millionaire's family for nearly a decade. Rosa's loyalty was unquestionable, but her daughter, Isabella, was a different story. At just 13, she carried an energy that was impossible to contain, bright, curious, and full of life. Inside the mansion lived Emily, the millionaire's only daughter. Once a graceful dancer with dreams of performing on grand stages, her life was forever changed after an accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Confined to a wheelchair, Emily rarely ventured beyond her room, her spirit dimmed by the weight of her new reality. To most, she was fragile, broken, and in need of pity. But Isabella didn't see her that way. Every afternoon, while Rosa worked quietly in the background, Isabella wandered into the upstairs halls, sometimes peeking into Emily's room. At first it was just curiosity, but soon it became a habit. She'd hum songs, twirl around, and let her small feet tap against the polished wood floors. Emily would watch, silent but captivated, her eyes following every step. For the first time in months, the mansion's halls carried laughter and rhythm instead of emptiness. What neither girl knew was that their innocent bond would soon stir up tensions far greater than either could have imagined, and when the millionaire himself discovered it, the household's unspoken. For weeks, Isabella's dances became the secret heartbeat of the mansion. She would slip into Emily's room when her chores were done, spinning and twirling while Emily clapped along, her laughter echoing through the halls like a sound long forgotten. What began as small steps turned into full routines. Isabella had no formal training, but her movements carried a joy and freedom that textbooks could never teach. For Emily, trapped in her chair, it was as if someone had opened a window to the life she once knew. But not everyone viewed this friendship with warmth. Other staff members whispered in the kitchen, warning Rosa that her daughter was crossing boundaries. "The wealthy don't like it when servants forget their place," one cook muttered. Rosa scolded Isabella gently, telling her to keep her distance, afraid of what might happen if the millionaire found out. Yet every day Isabella returned, her youthful defiance stronger than her mother's fear. Tension grew the day Isabella brought Emily a small handmade bracelet woven from colorful threads she had bought with her own coins. Emily's eyes lit up as if someone had handed her the world. She slipped it on her wrist, refusing to take it off. But when Rosa saw it later, she froze. "You can't give her that," she hissed, terrified. To her, it wasn't just a bracelet. It was a reminder that her daughter's actions might be seen as overstepping, as daring to blur the rigid lines between the maid's child and the millionaire's daughter. The unease only deepened when a distant relative of the millionaire visited. He noticed Isabella in Emily's room and sneered, whispering about how these people should not be allowed to get too close. His words dripped with disdain, laced with the kind of prejudice that had always existed beneath the mansion's polished surface. Rosa overheard and begged her daughter to stop, but Emily protested, insisting Isabella's presence was the only thing keeping her from drowning in loneliness. The girls' bond was no longer a secret, and whispers traveled quickly. Soon, even, The millionaire himself began to notice subtle changes in his daughter, her renewed laughter, her eagerness to rise each morning. When he asked why, Emily simply smiled and said, "Because someone reminded me what it feels like to live." His curiosity grew, and one afternoon he followed the sound of music into his daughter's room. What he saw stopped him cold. There was Isabella, barefoot on the floor, dancing freely, her brown skin glowing in the afternoon light. Emily's eyes sparkled with a joy he hadn't seen since before the accident. For a moment, time froze, but beneath the stillness brewed a storm, because what the millionaire would do next would not only define his daughter's future, but also challenge the very prejudices that had always lingered behind the mansion's gates. The room fell silent when the millionaire stepped through the doorway. Isabella froze mid-spin, her cheeks flushing as she realized she had been caught. Emily's smile faltered, fear flickering across her face. She knew the rules of her world, the invisible lines that divided wealth from poverty, privilege from struggle, white from brown. Her father stood tall, his expression unreadable, eyes shifting from his daughter in the wheelchair to the maid's child standing barefoot before him. Rosa rushed in moments later, panic in her eyes. She dropped her cleaning cloth and immediately pulled Isabella behind her, apologizing over and over. "I'm sorry, sir. She didn't mean to. It won't happen again." Her voice shook as though she were begging for her job, her dignity, and her daughter's future all at once. The millionaire's relative, the same man who had sneered days earlier, appeared behind him and smirked. "This is what happens when you let the help's children roam free," he muttered. "They forget their place. Send them out before they disgrace this family further." His words sliced through the air like poison, each syllable dripping with racism and contempt. Emily's voice broke the silence. "No!" she cried out, gripping the arms of her wheelchair. "Don't you dare take her from me! She's the only reason I smile anymore. She's the only friend I have." For a long moment, the millionaire said nothing. His daughter's words hung heavy in the air, battling centuries of unspoken prejudice. Isabella's small hand clutched her mother's arm tightly, her wide eyes glistening with tears, bracing for punishment she did not deserve. Rosa lowered her head, ready to accept whatever judgment would come, and then, with a deep breath, the millionaire stepped forward. His decision, his reaction in this moment, would not only define his relationship with his daughter, but also challenge the racism and class barriers that had dictated the lives within his mansion for far too long. The room held its breath as the millionaire stepped closer. For a moment, his gaze lingered on Isabella, then on Rosa, whose trembling hands clutched her daughter as though shielding her from the world. Finally, his eyes rested on Emily, her bracelet glimmering faintly in the sunlight, a simple thread of color that spoke louder than words. He bent down, placed his hand on Emily's shoulder, and spoke softly but firmly. "If this girl brings you joy, then she belongs here." The words cut through centuries of expectation like a blade. Gasps echoed from the doorway. His relatives scoffed in outrage, muttering about shame and tradition, but the millionaire ignored him. His focus was on his daughter, whose eyes welled with tears of relief. Turning to Rosa, he said, "You've served this house with dignity. Your daughter has given mine something that money and doctors never could: hope. No one will take that away." His tone was final, a declaration that rewrote the unspoken rules of his household. Rosa collapsed into quiet sobs, torn between gratitude and disbelief, while Isabella smiled shyly, her innocence untainted by the prejudice that had nearly silenced her joy. The millionaire's decision reverberated beyond those walls. The staff spoke of it for weeks, whispering about the day the master of the house defied the very prejudices that had long governed their lives. For Emily, it was more than acceptance. It was the return of her spirit, her belief that she was still worthy of laughter, friendship, and love. And for Isabella, it was a lesson that courage, even in small acts like dancing, could shift hearts hardened by wealth and fear. And class may have drawn invisible lines in that mansion, but in a single moment, those lines blurred. The question that lingers is simple yet profound. If one man could challenge his own prejudice when faced with love and truth, why do so many still cling to the walls that divide us?